The second part of my job was training leaders. You always needed really great camp leaders. They were often young people just finished grade 12 or just finished grade 11 or started university. They didn't have much money, but they paid to come on the camp. They paid the same fees the kids did, and that helped keep costs down. This was no holiday. They came and worked really, really hard. They had to have a servant attitude. They had to model Jesus. And we built a temporary Christian community. So I did a lot of training with leaders. So from 6 months out, we met one night a week every month. And as it got closer and closer to the camp, we met more and more often and practiced and trained them and got them ready for it. It was a really great part of our job. One year we ran horse camp. Oh boy. It filled up in the first 2 days, and every day after that we knocked back about another 10 applicants who badly wanted to come to horse riding camp. Very popular camp. And then I had an odd experience. A lady came to see me. She was the mum of a 17-year-old, and she said, "Can my daughter please come as a leader on horse riding camp?" And I said, okay. She did not pay fees. Her mum paid her fees. She did not attend any of the training sessions. She was too busy. When camp came along, she slept in every single morning. She did no dirty jobs. She peeled no potatoes. She washed no toilets. She got the kids to go and get her food in the morning because she missed breakfast. There were horses there that we had that she wouldn't ride. She's like, "I'm not riding that. I'm certainly not riding that. I'm not riding that. I'll ride this one." She refused the Bible study, the early morning prayer meetings that we had, praying over each of the children who came to. She was not there. She did not attend. She didn't really want to come to the Bible study teaching sessions either. She had long blonde hair and she spent an incredible amount of time on her hair. Every day. Every day. Lengthy showers and shampooings and arrangings. She had a hairnet that matched her joggers. I'm not kidding. She drove me crazy. And I was sitting there just very frustrated about her as a leader on the camp. And I was talking to another lady who was a leader. She was a French lady. Her name was Michelle. And Michelle said to me, "Don't worry about her. She cannot be the Scripture Union camp leader. She's too busy being a princess." And she was right. See, she wasn't building a Christian community. She was running her own show. James 4 and lots of other places in the Bible talk about pride. And James 4 is a good summary. It says, "God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. Therefore submit to God." This is the second horse story. I call it the quiet filly. We had a nice mare when we lived out here on the road between Boonah and Ipswich, and this nice Removale mare had a little filly for us. A beautiful thing. Beautiful little thing. Two things you need to remember about this filly. The first is that when she was just a day old, a gelding shoved her through a barbed wire fence. She got a big cut on her chest and a big cut on one of the front legs. And so every day for about 8 weeks, we had to pen her and dress these dressings and handle her feet a lot. The second thing to remember is that she was bred for endurance riding. Endurance riding is not like show jumping or dressage. It's rough. You have this station, this area in the middle where there's vets and lots of equipment and all the horse loads, and the horses go out on big loops, riding out in the bush in the countryside as fast as they can. It could be 50 k's, it could be 100 k's, these big loops, and when they come back in, they're surrounded by strappers, maybe 10 or a dozen of them, and they're throwing cold water on the horse, trying to bring its temperature down. They're picking up all its feet and checking it. They're running its teeth. They give it a big shot of hydrolyte, electrolyte fluids. Someone will put a thermometer at its rear end. All around this horse, there's all these people. There will be a person there trained to do TPR, temperature, pulse and respiration, checking his belly for gut sounds, because these little Arab horses will run till they die underneath you. So you've got to really watch them. And because of that, if you breed a horse for endurance riding, they have to be steady as a rock, quiet as a lamb. They've got to stand there with all this fuss going on. So we had this little filly, and we got her very used to being handled, because she had to every day anyway because of these cuts, but we put a rope around her back end. They call that a bum rope. We walked her around a lot. We put halters on her. We got her used to us picking up her tail and touching her belly and her ears and made sure she wasn't shy. And we spent ages picking up her feet. We picked up all her feet every day, 3 or 4 times a day. If you went out in the paddock, she'd walk over you and pick up a wolf because she just knew that's what we were going to do. We picked up all her feet. It got so that you could throw ropes on her anywhere, you could flap bags around her, you could pick up all her feet. Super, super quiet, steady as a rock. Paul could go out in the paddock. One day he went out and she was asleep and he lay down on her. And she was very, very quiet, a very nice, quiet little filly. But one thing we didn't train her for was how to get on a horse load. She was only quite young, and our friends came to visit us, and their teenage daughter fell in love with this filly, and they decided they would buy her. So they came with a truck to pick her up. No, she was not getting in that truck. She'd never seen that before. Now, a horse float has a ramp at the back, and they thought, well, maybe it's a bit scary for her because the ramp was on a slope. So they drove next to the dam and lowered the float on the dam wall so that it was level. Nope, she's not getting on that float. And we put hay in there. Nope, she's not getting on the float. We put another horse in there. We tended her. We tried all sorts of things. In the end, she got in that float because she was so used to us handling her feet. 4 of us stood on all the 4 legs of that horse and walked her 1 foot at a time into that float. And she never kicked or did anything, and she trusted us with her feet. So we walked her into the float. It was pretty funny. Psalm 118, verses 16 and 19 says, I shall not die but live and declare the works of the Lord. The Lord has chastened me severely, but he has not given me over to death. Open for me the gates of righteousness, and I will enter and give thanks to the Lord. I will enter and give thanks to the Lord. This is the 3rd story. It's about Wilson. Some of you know about Wilson. My horse Wilson is a naughty horse. If you went to catch Wilson, if you went down the paddock with a bridle in your hand, he would just run away. If you hid the bridle behind your back and there was the least little tick of the bit making noise, he would laugh as he ran away. He would not let you catch him. And if you finally did catch him, you'd take him up to the round yard, and that's where you put him in to get saddled or to do some groundwork or to do work with him, and he hated it. Wilson was a naughty horse. This is my garden and the farm in a good year, but you all know what 2017 and 2018 and 2019 were like. For 3 years, it just didn't rain. That was really hard. It was a horrible time. That's our big dam. It's just a puddle. It got so that there was nothing really on the ground, and we sold off a lot of stock, but Wilson was still there, and the only food he had was what I gave him. And I decided he needed to work for it. So this is what I did. Instead of just taking out feed for Wilson, when I took it out, I would whistle. I'm not going to do it here. I could do fairly loud. 2 notes, big loud whistle. And it got so that I could just stand in the opening to the paddock and whistle, and Wilson would come from wherever he was. And after he was doing that fairly well, I went into the round yard and whistled. Now the round yard is work. He don't like the round yard. And the first time I did that, I stood in the round yard with his hay and whistled, and he galloped up, and he looked at me, and he looked at the round yard, and he was really annoyed, and he ran away. So I got time, we'll just wait. So I just waited, and he came back, and he snorted and stamped his feet, and looked really annoyed with me, and ran away again. Okay, I got time. And after a while, he came in. He was filthy angry with me. And he came in and seethed and glared at me. And as soon as he came in, I just put down the hay and walked out. And at the end of the week, you could whistle, and wherever he was, he'd come running up and run in the round yard. And I'd just walk away, leave the gate open, walk away. And then, see, the hay comes from the hay shed, which is just up the hill from the round yard. It's not far away. And I decided that he was going to take me bareback up to the round yard. And he's a tall horse, so I couldn't get on him from the ground. So I went in the round yard and whistled, and he came, and I climbed up on the rails and stuck my leg out. And it worked out. He walked around the round yard and came under my leg, and I dropped on his back, and he walked up to the round yard. That's him, walking up to the round yard. quiet as a lamb. No bridle, no saddle, no nothing. It got so that wherever he was on the farm, I could whistle 2 notes. He'd come running, he'd come into the round yard and line up himself at the side of the fence, and I'd drop on his back and he'd walk up to the shed. Wilson changed from being a bad boy to being a very good boy. In Matthew 5, Jesus is giving the Sermon on the Mount, and he said, "Blessed are these ones, and blessed are those ones, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who mourn." And he said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." What deficiency made the princess a bad SU leader? Was it that she had a lack of Bible knowledge? Well, there wasn't a lot of Bible knowledge there. But that wasn't the worst thing. Was it that she had no siblings to knock off the rough edges, or no teaching knowledge or skills with primary school age kids? Or was it that she was an excessive sleeper? Those things are all things you could overcome. But she was proud and unteachable. And that's the really big problem. You couldn't teach her. What got the foal into the truck? Was it that we lowered the ramp onto level ground? Was it the tempting hay, or the other horse inside, or our nice calm voices, or the bum rope? No. She trusted us with her feet. We walked her in. What motivated Wilson to be a good boy? Was it because he wanted to? No, he did not want to. Was it because he loved goodness for its own sake? No, not interested. Was it because he loved me? Not really. Was it because he loved food? Well, he did love food, but he loved food when there was lots of food around. And he wasn't a good boy then. He was a good boy because he was hungry. And until he was hungry, he was not prepared to change. What do you think about my question? Why am I telling these stories in church? Years ago, when I first came back from the Philippines and agreed to come and do some teaching here, someone from head office came out, some, I don't know, mid-level poobah of some kind, and he asked me a bunch of questions. And his question was, what is your goal for the church? What are you doing there? And it made me think, and after a while I came back to it and I said, I'm not leading the show. I'm not running the ship. I'm not choosing the direction or the vision. I don't have those gifts. Barry Hendrickson asked me if I'd come. And my goal is that each person grows spiritually. That's all I got. Each person sitting in here grows spiritually. And that's why I'm telling you horse stories in church. See, I often find, as I'm growing as a Christian, is that I don't like to grow righteousness in my life. It's often hard and uncomfortable, the process. I don't like the discomfort and stress of spiritual change and spiritual growth. I like it in theory, but the practice is difficult. I like to think about it. I've read about it. I like to know things about it, but to actually do it, do I actually want to do it? To have a deepening love of the Bible. To be getting into it more and more often, more and more deeply, and to love that. To choose it rather than a novel that I want to read or my phone to look at. To choose it because I love it. That's not easy. To offer hospitality to people. I'm an introvert. I like being on my own. to be the open-hearted, open-home sort of person Jesus wants, especially uncomfortable people. People who are tricky, people with mental health issues, or people with problems, or people who are hard to feed, or people who are demanding or strange, or people I don't know very well. I don't want to, when God calls me to do that. And I love the idea of a private integrity, the integrity that no one sees. But to actually do the work of resisting thoughts that are covetous, to actually not have thoughts that judge other people or are critical, to actually not enjoy gossipy ideas about people, to have the private integrity that even the part of me that you can't see, to live righteously in that part of my life. I love the theory, but actually doing it is hard. To actually, in your whole thought life, forgive people who've hurt and offended me, like really annoyed me or hurt me. To have not just a public show of forgiveness and friendship, but actually forgive. Actually feel love and affection for people. I find that I am unteachable in some ways. I resist. I ask God to open to me the doors of righteousness, like that psalm says. Open the doors of righteousness, but then I lean away and I resist. And I don't want to actually do it, and I'm the princess. And I didn't like the princess. And I don't like this about myself. And I'm not building a Christian community, I'm running my own show. And that resistance, it's not just a thing that happens at salvation, when someone has come into Jesus and they resist. People do, they resist and then they come. And it's like a big surrender. It's not just about salvation, but it's a lifelong, normal process of spiritual growth. You are always going to be invited in. And it doesn't get any easier, it just gets deeper. More and more. He asks you to surrender. And the song on the guitar said, I surrender. Oh. More and more. And when I sense that resistance in myself, because it's there, what I'm learning, what I need to learn, is to grab that moment and say, this is the moment, this is the drought. This is where my righteousness has failed. This is the time when I'm finally hungry. This is the moment for spiritual growth. And I don't despair. I'm learning about my own sin or my failure or my resistance to grow, but I tell the truth about it. I agree with God about it. I call a spade a spade. I'm learning to say that it is where it is. This is me not wanting to grow. This is me not wanting to invite people over. This is me not wanting to forgive. This is me resisting. And I ask Him to open for me the gates of righteousness and walk me through following Jesus. I think about the quiet filly. And I say to Him, I don't want to do this, but I ask you to pick up my feet, one by one, and walk me into righteousness in spite of my pride and stubbornness, in spite of me being the princess who would rather run my own show than do it your way. And I think of Wilson, who became a good boy in spite of himself, because at least I'm hungry. Sometimes that's all I've got. Sometimes that's the best that is true of me. I'm hungry. That psalm that says those words that are open to me the gates of righteousness and I will in is Psalm 118. It's really interesting for a few reasons. It's the exact centre of all the verses in the Bible. There are 15,587 verses before it and 15,588. It's the middle. So it's worth considering why it's in the middle, what's special about it. That psalm is one that Jesus sang that night in the upper room. Before he said those words, Monica repeated for us, that his body and his blood. Back then, when they had held cedar, when they sat cedar or had the Passover celebration, this psalm they sang, Jesus would have sung it. I shall not die. He'd have sung it, but live. God has chastened me severely, but open for me the gates of righteousness, and I will go in. And he could say that. David wrote the psalm. It's a psalm of David, but it's early. It's before the events of Psalm 51. It's before Bathsheba. He said, open for me the gates of righteousness, and I will go in. But actually, God opened for him the gates of righteousness, and he said, bring me that woman. And arrange the death of this man. And tell his lies. See, he had a youthful certainty that he would enter the gates, that if God opened for him the gates, he'd go through. But that certainty was flawed. When I was younger, I thought that about myself. If you just put it in front of me, God, I'll do it. If you just show me clearly, I'll do it. But I know myself better now. And he opens the gates, and I lean back. David needed help to get in through the gates. As do I. Are you sometimes proud? Do you sometimes resist true spiritual growth? Not just the theory, not just the ideas, but the actual doing. The gates lie open for us, the curtains torn, the ways made clear. And sometimes it isn't just a general moment of salvation, but that moment where he's asking you specifically to make this growth and this change. And still, you resist and you hold. Jesus sang on that night, I shall not die but live and declare the works of the Lord. Sometimes life is hard and the Lord has chastened me severely, but he has not given me over to the kingdom of death, but he has brought me into the kingdom of life. And if you open for me the gates of righteousness, Jesus was the one who could say, I will enter. And he did all the way as far as it goes. And give thanks. How lovely that Monica focused on that. But he gave thanks even for the cup of communion that was the symbol of his death. He gave thanks. Just imagine being in that room. Imagine sitting on the wall as a servant while the disciples held the Passover and hearing that man say those things. He didn't. And he went there by way of cross so that he could give his righteousness to you and me. And he will walk me through on his own hands. Because I won't get there on my own. He will walk me through on his own hands. We're going to sing a hymn. It's very old. And it's called, He Will Hold Me Fast. And it says, when I fear my faith will fail, He will hold me fast. I could never keep my hold through life's stormy blast, but he will hold me fast. How are we going with that one up the back? We didn't